Here we go. Recording in progress. Welcome to the Obsidian Community Talk on buttons. I am your host, Shabagam. You can also call me Sam. If you want, you can call me anything you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. That's a little joke my mom used to make. All right, here we go. The life-changing magic of buttons. Okay. I need you to ask yourself one question before we get started here. Are you ready to change your life? This is a serious question. You need to think deep and hard. Are you ready for a change to your life like you would never believe? Do you want to be successful, rich, and charming like myself? Because if you're not ready, you should leave this call right now, right? If you're not ready, the Zoom, you can leave the Zoom right away. If you are, though, let's keep going. Because there is a guarantee at the end of this talk. There is a guarantee that your life will be forever changed. Things will be very, very different from this day forward. You might be asking yourself, well, what if my life doesn't change? You're promising huge and magical changes to my life right now. What if that doesn't happen? Well, Skeptic Mystic has promised they will give you a full refund for your cost that you paid to be at this talk today. So if your life doesn't change by the end of this, go ahead, talk to Skeptic Mystic. They'll offer you a full refund. The secret to life changing, one word: buttons. Buttons will make you rich, buttons will make you successful, and buttons will make you ridiculously good looking, just like me. But what is a button? Well, Merriam-Webster defines a button. There's a couple definitions. One is a small knob or disc secured to an article of clothing for a fastener. That's not what we're talking about. But number two here, something such as a push button that has a real or symbolic capability of initiating a catastrophe. There are good catastrophes and there are bad catastrophes. We're going to initiate some great catastrophes here today. Buttons are old. They trace back to the Indus Valley. Over 2800. I don't know how time works. I wish Eleanor was here. But push buttons is what we're going to talk about today. And they're just a mechanism that you can use to control some aspect of a machine or process. You can also say pressing, depressing, mashing, slapping, hitting, and punching. But please don't punch my buttons. Don't push my buttons. You can click the buttons, though. That's totally fine. All right. I'm going to launch a poll here. We're going to do a quick check-in of this poll. There's two questions. How familiar are you with buttons? And you can feel free to answer that. And then the second question is, what would you like to hear about buttons today? And that'll help me sort of guide my talk here. All right, answers are coming in. 6 of 19. Okay. Surprised not more people are here for the snacks. They're delicious.
Este és el teu, Àngels, el que és brut. Aquest és el teu. El brut,
Ai, aquí lá.
el brut és el teu.
La caixa era bruta.
La caixa bruta teva.
La caixa bruta. Okay, we have 84 respondents in, 89. It looks like, I don't know if y'all can see this poll. I don't know how polls actually work, but it looks like most people have heard of buttons and have installed buttons, but need to learn more. 10 out of 17 people want to know the basics, what different kinds of buttons there are, how to use buttons with templates. Some people want advanced buttoneering. And a few people are confused and think this is a Arby's. So if you think it's an Arby's, you know, you might be hungry and you might need to go get a snack. So if you need to go get a snack, that's totally fine. I won't know that you've left at all. In fact, because your videos are all off. So feel free to do that. Secrets. I've got one button secret to share with you today. Okay. This is what I was like before buttons. This is a picture of me before I had buttons in my life. This is me after I had buttons in my life. And this is what you are all going to look like after this buttons community talk. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. Okay. This is a very professionally done chart here where the x-axis is time and the y-axis is success. As you can see, this blue line, when time began, I was a complete and total loser. And then I had buttons in my life, and all of a sudden, success just shot up, and now I'm the best. So just another proving point that buttons will make you successful and rich. Let's get rich by using buttons. How? All right, demo time. Here we go. Before I show you how to get rich by using buttons, it's a little bright. This light mode is a little, it's off-putting. I'm gonna switch up. That I had to wear sunglasses. It was so bright in here. So let's turn down the lights. Whoa, what just happened there? That was wild. I pressed a button and it turned to dark mode. Well, intro to your very first button. This is what a button looks like. Let me see if I can increase the size here. Appearance, it's probably a little small for the folks in the back. So this is what a button looks like. Pretty basic. This is your basic button. Buttons require 3 arguments that are inside a command block. These are the only 3 things that are required to make a button work. The first is the name, and as you can see, the name is what shows up in the front of the button. The second is what type of button it is, and there's a bunch of different types of buttons, and we will go into what those are a bit later. But this is what's called a command type button, and a command button will run any command specified from this command palette. So the command palette on a Mac, you hit Command P to launch it. I think it's Control P on Windows. Not sure, but basically for a command button, the third argument is the action, which is the command you want to run, and there's a use dark mode action. So if I switch back to light mode here, we go back, we hit this, turn down the lights, we ran use dark mode. So we can run any command palette command from the click of a button. Pretty cool. And that's all you really need to make a button: a name, a type, and an action. And there you go. But how do you get buttons? So to install buttons, if you don't have it already, shame on you. But if you need it, you could just open the settings, community plugins, browse, search for buttons, install, and enable. So down here, community plugins, browse, search for buttons. There it is. Sam Morrison, that's me. And you can join the 7,500 other people who have downloaded and hopefully have installed buttons into their Obsidian vault. The other thing you're going to want to do is there's a template type button which allows you to insert template files into notes and make new notes from templates. But in order for that to work, you need either the templates core plugin or the templater plugin, and you need to have the folder location set in that. Buttons uses that to find those templates, so it relies on those. You can actually set 2 separate different folders if you want, or you can do the exact same one, doesn't matter. You can use one plugin or the other, doesn't matter. You just need one of them to have a template folder location. So that is how you install buttons. Okay, but let's make some money. That is why you are all here, is to become bajillionaires by using buttons. So click this button and get rich. Let's make it rain. Whoa, that's pretty cool. It looks like the money is flowing in. Let's take a look at this button, see what it is. Oh, wow, that's interesting. It's just like a one-liner. So this is what we call an inline button, which is pretty powerful aspect of buttons. Is you can actually define your button somewhere else, and then adding the one line with what's called the button ID you can insert that button into whatever note you want. So you could have a sort of a parent template of a bunch of buttons, and then you can insert that button into any other note that you need. So it's really useful if you have a bunch of common buttons that you use across your vault. This button's kind of interesting though, because if I click it again, oh, it stopped. It stopped. And if I click it, it starts again. Stop, start, stop, start. So usually, right, buttons only do one thing when you click them, but this is a special type of button. So let's take a look at what's happening here. These are my parent buttons. We have start raining, stop raining, and make it rain. And let's take a look at what they look like. So again, just like the command button that I showed you first off, this is a very simple button with a name, a type, and an action. So again, the name is what shows up on the button. The type here is a template button. And there's different types of template buttons. You can append templates, you can prepend templates, you can create new notes from templates, whatever you want to do. This is called a line template, and this lets you specify what line into your note you want the templated file to show up on. And I've done a little hack here where I've assumed that there is no line 999. And so that means it's just going to insert whatever this template is into the very bottom of the note. And then the action is the template file within your templates folder that you want to have inserted. So I have a template called Rain on Me. And then this button has the ID, which is a block ID at the bottom, just below it with a caret button dash rain. So that is the start raining button. The stop raining button looks very similar. It's just calling a different template. So it's calling stop raining there at the end. And then make it rain is actually the stonks button. So remember, if we go back here, we take a look, it's button stonks. I just call that with the ID. And so this one has button stonks, has the button ID, so we can use it as an inline button.
Use it as an inline button.
All right, I'm gonna mute you, Mr. Martin Urban. But this is a special kind of button. You'll notice it doesn't have a type or an action. It has what's called a swap argument. And a swap argument allows you to define other buttons, and it pulls in the action from those buttons. So if I click on Make It Rain once, it'll fire the rain button. If I click it on a second time, it'll fire the stop raining button. So that is why this button here, I can click. Oh, we got a lot of money flowing in. We're going to be loaded by the end of this. I can make a click here and it should stop and start. Now, the one tricky bit with the swap buttons is they only work when you're in the note that you're in. If you leave the note and come back, it resets the order to the beginning. And I want to work on that. Okay, Resgi, if I got that, do you have your hand raised? What's up? Indeed. Speed up. Okay, Udis. So it only takes the last word. Yeah. So in this case, whenever you're assigning the button ID within the button block, you can exclude the button there. So you have stonks here. So you only need the second argument. When you're defining the inline button, you need to define both, because this is what tells it it's a button. Otherwise, it'll just look like a code block, an inline code block. All right. So how do you make buttons? Here's the easiest way how. It's using the button maker. Step 1, open the command palette. Step 2, type button. Step 3, profit. So opening the command palette, I'm going to type button. We have 2 options. There's an easy way to insert inline buttons into your notes. We're going to open up the button maker. So the button maker is a WYSIWYG way to make the buttons, so you don't have to write in those code blocks yourself. It has all the options you want for creating buttons. So the first one is the name. I say but. You say ton. Then you have button types. So we have all different types of buttons here. We have the command button, which you saw, that lets you run a command. We have a link button where you can specify a URL and it'll open that website. You have the template buttons, which allow you to append, prepend, or insert a template. So if I choose a template button, I can then do prepend, append, line, or even create a new note from a template. We have text to insert text directly into a note. That's if you don't want to sort of pull from a template, you can just do it as plain text. Calculate, run some math calculations, and then the swap button, which I just showed you before. So let's make a text button, and we're just going to append some text here. We're going to append the text, but there's a bunch of other options. You could specify your own button block ID, like I did with the rain and stop raining. Remove allows you to actually remove the button after you've clicked it. So if you toggle remove, when you click this button, it'll disappear. And this is good for like daily notes pages. If you want to click a button once and then you don't need it anymore, you can remove it. You could specify the just true here and it'll remove that button, but you can also send it an array of different buttons. And if you have multiple buttons on the page, these again are the button IDs at the bottom. And if you specify those, it'll remove all the buttons listed in the ID. All right. If you have questions, just throw them right in the chat there, and I will see them. Replace. The replace option allows you to actually replace things that are already in the note. So say I wanted to wipe this note completely, I could do replace lines 0 to 100, and it's an array with the number of lines and where you want to replace them. I recommend having your line numbers turned on because it makes it easy to see what lines you want to replace. Inherent, don't worry about that. And then templater we'll take a look at a little later. Finally, for styling, you could supply a custom class, a CSS class, if you want to provide custom styling for your buttons, or you can actually just change the color here. So let's make it a red button and we click insert button, and there we go. We get our entire button made for us, code block there. We don't have to worry about a thing. I say but, you say ton. So I'm going to click this. It's going to say but, and then you're going to say ton back at me. Ready? But ton, but ton, but ton. No? Okay. Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, 1 ton. All right, cool. So next up, back here, we're still getting pretty wealthy here. We got a lot of dinero coming in. It's still flying in there. So I've put together a shopping list of things that I want to buy when I cash out my my money here, and I want all these things, but I'm not sure what the total number is. And so I created this count them up button, and I'm just going to click it, and boom, it actually counted all of these items for me and gave me the total result. So this is sometimes handy, and this is called a calculate button. And the calculate button can run any sort of calculation. So if I just remove this for a second and I go pi divided by 4 and then try that. See, oh, it gives me pi divided by 4. It handles all sorts of advanced math. But the other kind of neat thing is I've defined line numbers here with the $sign, then the number, and the $sign. So $5 is line 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up. And I'm just adding up all these line numbers. This calculate button's finding the number on that line, extracting it, and then it's adding it, and it's giving me the output, which is 78. So calculate buttons, you can do some straight up math if you want to. You can take different lines and add them up. I just think it's fun to play with, and then it just outputs the result directly below the button. Cool. Much time? Got lots of time. Okay, so I also have some things I want to accomplish once I'm rich. Besides going shopping and buying, drummers drumming and maids of milking, I'm gonna have so many maids of milking. It's gonna be awesome. I have other plans that I want to accomplish. So I have this draft a plan button, and I need to share my, yeah, okay. All right. That should be working now. So I'm just going to click draft a plan.
I am going to rule the world.
And hopefully y'all heard my plan. I don't know if could you hear that? Let me try one more time. Draft a plan.
I am going to rule the world.
I am going to rule the world. So what is going on here? That is wild. This is another button. So this is an interesting, this is a hack. This is a pro hack going on here. So we have our name, draft a plan. Don't take me down. I'm going to rule the world. But the type here is a link button. Now, a link button, like I said, you could open something like google.com if you really wanted to use Google, but you should probably use DuckDuckGo to like hide, you know, because Google's mining all the behavioral data from you. So use DuckDuckGo. So you could supply a URL just like that to the action. But what I've done here is I've actually provided a callback, an X callback URL, or sometimes called a deep link to another app in my on my Mac here. And so I'm using the Drafts app, which is this let me I can't find it right now, but the Drafts app is just like another quick text entry app that lets you enter text and then run actions on that text. I'm just gonna mute you. Okay. So this app, yeah, you can trigger app actions. So I'm sending this text, I am going to rule the world, to Drafts, and then I'm triggering an action I created called speak, which then speaks that text out via audio. So if any app has a deep link, you could actually fire off that whatever that action is with deep link. So I know somebody has this app called Focus, and the Focus app allows you to use a link to create a focus session, which basically, you know, shuts down distracting websites and only has a select number of apps that you can use at a time. And so they've turned that into a button, and anytime they want to go into focus mode, they just click a button to say start focusing. So that's the power of the link. You can open websites, but you could also just fire off any deep link or X callback URL. And this will work on mobile as well. So if you wanted to fire off an action in the mobile Obsidian that opens up another app, say you want to quickly open another app, this will do that. And so you can put these buttons into your daily notes page or into a handy little note that you can use to go to different apps. So that is the link type button. Okay. Next up, growing rich. I don't know if anybody's seen this tweet, but this is another way to get rich. You could use $50 to buy 10 tomato plants. In 6 months, you'll have 250. You plant those, then in 6 months, you'll have 6,250. Plant them 6 months, plant them, and then you got 3.9 tomatoes, sell them for $1 each. You got $3.9 million. That sounds great. I'm going to do it. Let's plant this tomato plant. Okay, just you check the notification up there, growing. Oh, yeah, awesome. We got 2 tomato plants. Okay, let's grow that one. Okay, and this one is growing. Okay, oh, we got another 2. Oh, I'm going to be rich in no time. This is going to be great. Just keep growing these tomato plants. I'm going to have so many tomatoes and I will be a millionaire soon. All right, so what's going on here? Again, a fairly simple set of buttons here. They're all line text buttons. And again, the text button allows you to insert text. So the action is whatever text you want to insert. But kind of what's neat about this setup is I'm inserting other buttons. So I'm using inline buttons as the action, and I'm inserting those buttons. And I've actually built up a bunch of swap buttons. Ignore that they're called bunny, because these used to be bunny rabbits breeding, but I changed it to tomatoes at the last second. So they're all called bunny, but ignore that for a second. Yeah, I know, definitely better with tomatoes than bunnies. So then I've made swap buttons that allow you to swap in different bunny buttons. And then I have this remove command here that removes specific bunny buttons. And so you could build up actually some very complex workflows here where you're inserting multiple buttons and doing commands and other kind of buttons. So that is another example. Okay, hacker button. This is my hacker button. I'm going to show you some advanced buttoneering now. So buckle up. Here we go. I'm going to click the hacker button. Mess with the best. Oh, we got a notification. Die like the rest. If you're familiar with the 1995 movie Hackers, this is Zero Cool's slogan. Mess with the best. Die like the rest. So what's interesting about this? Well, it's kind of cool that we're clicking a button and it's triggering this notice. We saw that with the tomato button. But what's actually really neat about this is it's not a button at all. It's a data view JS code block, which that's kind of neat. So buttons actually exposes a function called create button. That is a JavaScript function that allow you to customize and create a button that can do whatever you want it to do. So let's walk through this really quickly. We're getting create button from app.plugins.plugins buttons. We're getting it from the buttons plugin, and it's this function called create button. Then I have here a click handler function, and that's where the notice is created. And then down here, this code is all just the button. That's what the button is. So the button, I'm sending it the app. I'm sending it to attach the button to this container, which is the data view JS command block. I'm giving it the name. And then the click override is the click and any params, and I have no params, so the click handler. And that allows me to encode create a button. So, I mean, this is kind of useless and fun, but I use it to impress my friends, which is like, y'all, I don't have any friends. That's why I'm doing a talk on buttons. But it's also interesting because you could actually use it to develop data view views that then change based on clicking a button within that data view. So the meta edit plugin, which is a really cool plugin that allows you to sort of edit the YAML front matter in a bunch of notes. The meta edit plugin has actually integrated these buttons into data view views that when you click the button, it can shift a task from to do to completed, for example, or perform another action on other notes. And so there's an example in the meta edit README on GitHub if you're sort of interested in the power of these more functional buttons. Okay. Last up. So I got 30 minutes. I hope y'all have a lot of questions because I'm almost done with the presentation. Or we could just hang out. I don't have anywhere to be. All right. So finally, probably the most frequent use of buttons is to create new notes based on templates. And so this is a simple log it button. And again, whenever I do something that I think is going to make me more rich, I want to take a note of that. I want to write that down so I remember it so I can perform that action again. And so when I click this button, it actually created a new note in, I don't know if you could see this folder here called My Log. It titled the note with today's date, 8/28, and the time. It's 12:32 where I'm at. And then it inserted the template with the time, what happened, and how did it make me richer. And I can go here. I could say gave a talk on buttons, made some friends for life. Because, richness isn't just about money. It's about, relationships and experiences. And I really feel like we bonded over this 30 minutes we've spent together. So what's going on here? We're doing, oh dear, something broke. Don't be a hacker like me and try and insert. Okay, ignore all the money for now. Let's just look at the button. I broke something. It wouldn't be buttons if there wasn't a bug, right? I always do something wrong. But anyway, let's just focus on this button here. So the name is log it. Now to create a note template, it's the type note template. See here, type note template. And then note has parentheses. And within the parentheses, you're going to name your template. And so I'm naming, yeah, I wish I didn't have, I don't want to create a nuclear disaster. Within this template, I have the path of the button I want to make. I have my log / and then I actually have a templater command here. And so if you're not familiar with templater, all this does is inserts the current date. And I gave it the format of the month, the day, the hour, and the minute. The action is the template file. And so again, that's just this stuff, the time, what happened, how did it make you richer. And then I have this little argument here, template or true. And if you remember when we were going through the button maker, there was a template or true, a template or toggle. And if you toggle that on, it inserts template or true. And what this does is this automatically converts any template or command you have inside your button code block before it runs the button action. And then it converts it back to the template or code block at the after the buttons ran. So this lets you create buttons that you can run multiple times to create notes, for example, and those notes will all have a different name because you've used a template or command. So the best way to show you how this works is if I actually do a split view here for a second. I'm going to click this log it button, and you should see on the left-hand side, you should see this template or command quickly switch to a date and then hopefully switch back to the template or command. Here we go. Live demo, drum roll, please. Log it. Okay, so it did it. That was annoying. Should have. Okay, so I'm going to add one more here so we can actually see this in action. So note takes one more argument, which is you can do a comma and then the word split. And if you do that, the new note is actually going to open in a split view rather than take you straight to that note. So I'm going to do that just so we can see this a little more clearly. Here we go. Log it. Did you see that? It actually didn't create the note because I was trying to create the exact same timing, but boom. Switches over. Ooh, so exciting. I could tell you're all on the edge of your seats. This super button. So anyway, probably the most popular way usage of buttons is to create different templates based on different parameters. So you could create I have buttons to add things to my daily notes template or create new logging notes if I want to keep a running log of what I'm doing. You can combine buttons with other plugins as well, like quick add, and then you can have a button run a quick add macro. It's really sort of a utility plugin that allows you to put these little clickable, lovely, cute things and then do different things with them. All right, but we were making some money. Let's see how we're doing. So we've got a lot. We've made mucho dinero here so far, and it's still going. I want to see. I wonder how much money we've made. So I'm just gonna go down to this show me the money button, and I'm gonna click that. And we have made over the course of this conversation, we have made $26,230. That's amazing. If I kept talking, we would be at like $52,000 by the end of the hour. That's pretty great. I mean, that's, an hourly rate of 50 grand is pretty sweet. What's going on here? So it's just another template button. The action is show me the money. We're doing a replace here so that if I click this button multiple times, it'll update in real time. Look at that. It's going fast. We're making lots and lots of money. That's amazing. Doing that with the replace button, we give it the color green. So if you're interested in what this template is, show me the money. I'm going to just show you that really quickly. And this is where templater, you can get really deep into templater if you want. Basically what I'm doing is I'm opening up that make it rain note using some of the Obsidian API. and then I'm counting how many times this flying dollar emoji shows up, and then I'm outputting that as the amount. So that's why it's updating in real time. That's actually the number of dollar emojis showing up. Pretty cool. All right, that is all I had. I hope you learned something. I hope I was fast enough for you told me to speed up. And yeah, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask them, and I can show more stuff. I know I went through a bunch of different buttons there, but questions, practical buttons, most practical buttons approach. What do you got here? Switching between different data views via buttons. Yeah, I can't show that because I would need to kind of have that set up in advance. Let me see if I have a data view ready here. I don't have a data view ready to go. Maybe, well, let me try this. So really, if you wanted to, you could set up a sort of a data view that collects a specific files of a specific type, say tasks, right? And then you could create a button that updates that data view based on what folder you want to see. So I have a kind of a reductive example here that I can. Oh, my Obsidian just disappeared. So let me reopen that. Oh, thank you. I hope is it Otis? Thank you. Thanks for linking that. Any other questions while I try and reopen that Obsidian Vault?
Hey, Sam, I have a question, but before, thank you very much for the talk. I know Ross was running late, but you did a great job as a one-man show, so we didn't even need to intervene or help you with questions or raising hands, people muting or anything. So thank you very much, and it's really a really nice talk about buttons. So now to my question. One thing I've been wanting to do is set up, let's say, a button that creates several files, right? So a template that is with multiple files, right? So for example, a paper that I'm reading or a new project that requires multiple files with multiple templates being triggered. I don't know if you can do maybe a small demo about that.
Yeah, for sure. There are a few different ways to do that. So let me just. I'll share my screen again, and we'll look at maybe a couple different ways if I can do them quickly. So share. Here we go. Okay, participants can now see my application. Oh, scary. So there's a couple ways. There's one using the swap style button, which we used up here in the Make It Rain rain clouds box. So using a swap style button, you build multiple buttons here and you give them each an ID, and then you create a button that it has a swap command, and you insert the ID of each of them. So each one of these could be a different file that you're creating using the note style template. And then all you would do is click on this button multiple times for the files that you wanted to be created. So that's sort of the basic, sort of most straightforward way to accomplish that, is to create a button that creates that new template, then create a special swap button here, and then we just insert that with button stonks as an inline button, and then I can use that and see it starting, and then I click it again. It doesn't want to work. In theory, it would stop running the dollars there if it was working properly. So that's one way. That's one way. Now, if you don't want to actually have to click a button multiple times, there's two other ways you could do this. You could create a template or template that actually creates those notes for you. So multiple files. So to do that, you'd have to sort of know a bit more about templater. But you could, so for example, I could do await app.vault.create. And then I think you supply a file name here. And then I have that file equals that. And then I can modify that file. So I can do content equals tp.file.include another template, and then I can go wait vault.modify file content, for example. And I think I'm probably not getting the commands extra, perfect, because I have to, every time I write a templater script, I have to have the Obsidian API and the templater one open, but maybe I can follow up afterwards with how this would look. But you could essentially create a templater block that creates multiple files all in one go. And then you would just create a button here that fires off that template. So button, Baron, button name, make files, action. You could just call it an append template because you're not actually doing anything with this, right? It's not actually outputting anything. It's just going to create these files. So that doesn't matter. And then the type, type would be append template. And then the action here would be multiple files, which is the name of the templater template note that you've made. So in theory, clicking this would fire off this templater template, and the code within this templater template would make multiple files. So that's another way to do it. It's a little more code heavy, a little less sort of straightforward. Finally, the third way you could do that is actually by using the Quick Add plugin. So I don't have that installed in this Vault, but if I go to Quick Add and install it, enable it, where's Quick Add? Yeah. So Quick Add lets you actually create these things called macros. And I wrote up a doc on this. Let me actually, I'll post that in the chat here on how to create a macro with Quick Add that allows you to trigger multiple commands. And so, boom. So that is a demo. There's two plugins. One is called macros, and that allows you to run multiple commands from the command palette all at once. But Quick Add is even more flexible than that. And you can build a macro, multiple files. Oops. Here, add macro. And then I'm going to configure that macro. And then there's this template button, and you can add a template choice. And then if I go in and edit it, I could choose a path. I can give that file a name. I could do all sorts of stuff with it. And then I can add multiple ones of these choices, right? Yeah, that's good. So I've created a macro. This macro is going to fire off and create 4 notes based on templates, and I can close that. And then I can Quick Add is kind of, you need to create the macro choice. So I have this files, add choice, macro, configure it to run the files macro. And then if I hit this little lightning bolt, it adds the files directly, this firing this choice, this quick add choice directly into the command palette. And so by doing that, I can then just use a command button here to run that. So name, make files, type is a command button, and then action is quick add files. And so this one is, there's a graphic interface to actually make the files. You're not just writing code in templater, and you can do a bunch of other things within quick add to manipulate those files, add information to them, etc. So this quick add approach is actually the most flexible of all three of those that you have. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, and feel free to follow up on the Discord.
It did. Thank you very much. I will definitely now go into those rabbit holes as well.
Yeah, I know. The fun thing about buttons is it just makes you want to, because it integrates with all the other plugins. As long as that plugin exposes a command or whatever, you can use any other plugin with a button to trigger an action, like hotkeys for templates. You could do that, or quick add, templater. All of those are all fun little rabbit holes to go down.
Thank you. Very, very nice.
Cool. All right, 10 minutes left. Is there any other questions anything to do with buttons I have not covered yet? If not, I hope you question. Okay. Make a button that creates a task referencing the project where the button is. Task file has a data view inlay project. Yeah, so you would use templater for that. What you would do is you would create a templater script, or you could use quick add in the same way I answered that previous question. You could use quick add to create a macro that creates by task, I'm assuming you mean a note that is of a task type rather than just a task like this. This is a task. Yeah, so a note that is a task. So you could either, it's a very similar approach to the previous question. You could either write a templater template and then have the button fire that template, and this template could create a new file with task. It could pull in the project name of the file that the templater command is being fired on. That I believe is TP file.title, because it should be, because if you're running it on the project note, this title will be the title of that project note. Or you could use front matter. I believe there's a way to access front matter from templater. And so you could then use that and insert that in a similar way. I'm getting the content here or modifying the content. So you could use templater, or you could use quick add to, again, a macro that sort of creates that template. Or the other thing that I know a lot of people like to do is use tp.system. I think it's suggester, and that will actually, or prompt rather, prompt. So this will actually show up like a prompt on your screen where you could type in, say, if you wanted to type in some specific metadata about that task before you create that task note, you could have templater pop up this prompt. And quick add has a similar functionality called capture, which is really neat. Quick add is really cool. It's very complex, but it's very cool. So basically, this will show a prompt and will ask you questions, and then you can define where it inserts the answer and into what file and etc. And it's super flexible. I go into prompts a little bit in that link with the tutorial. So yeah, quick add is really it's very advanced but very cool. Definitely recommend checking out the README and looking at examples. Read through the tutorial I posted the link to, because it sort of runs down some of the stuff, but it's a super flexible advanced tool. And then integrate that with a button, and you can have that on your project page and run the command. Okay. And of course, if anybody has any questions about any of this, you can ping me in the Discord. I'm pretty active in the where's the promised money. It's in the mail, but I could only I only paid for ground shipping, so you should expect it at your door in like 2 to 3 months. So because I didn't want to spend the money to ship the money to you, so you know. But I hope your life is changed a little bit. Yes, I am also a prince, but for that, let's talk after. I'll need a deposit in order to transfer my princedom to you. But yeah, if you have any questions about buttons or any questions about any plugin whatsoever, particularly Templator, you can hit me up in the OMG Discord. I'm pretty active within the plugins channels. If you have a question, ping me directly in plugins general about a buttons question, or use the Templator thread within Plugin Advanced to ask a Templator question. I'm usually around there and happy to answer any questions about anything. I hope you enjoyed this life-changing experience about buttons. I hope you are all going to be billionaires. And yeah, have a great rest of your Saturday.